Hi, everyone. Welcome to another KE Report webinar. I'm your host, Corey Fleck, also your host over at the KE Report website. You can find all of our market commentary, kereport.com. This webinar is also hosted in conjunction with Focus Communications. We are featuring Novo Resources, traded on the TSX under the symbol NVO and on the OTCQX under the symbol NSRPF. Now, this webinar is exploration focused. I am joined by a number of team members from Novo. First, we have Quinton Hennigh. We also have Mike Spreadborough, Executive Co-Chairman, Kaz DeLuca, General Manager of Exploration, Alwin Van Roij, Exploration Manager, East Pilbara, Chris Doyle, Exploration Manager, Victoria and Project Generation, as well as Iain Groves, Exploration Manager, West Pilbara. Now, I know there's already been a lot of questions that have come in for this webinar. I'm going to be holding back on all the questions until about the last 30 minutes here. And that's when we're going to go through as rapid fire as we can to get those questions addressed. And hopefully a lot of the questions that have already come in will be addressed during the presentation. Everybody, you can use the chat function, more so the Q&A function within this platform to send all of your questions to me. I will go through those and we will try to get to as many as possible. I'm not going to take up any more of the time here. So everybody, well, the team at Novo that is joining us, guys, please start off with this presentation. And as I mentioned, I will come in with questions at the tail end of this presentation. Guys, take it away.
Thanks very much, Corey. Look, welcome everyone to our essentially inaugural Novo Resources Exploration webinar. A copy of the webinar and the presentation will be on our website following this, and really do appreciate everyone's attention. As Corey said, I'm Mike Spreadborough, I'm the Executive Co-Chairman, and I'll kick off today's webinar. As normal, there's a couple pages of legal documentation. Please have a read at some stage, but we're not going to focus on those today. We're going to focus on Novo and our exploration potential. So today you're going to hear from our extensive and very experienced exploration team. They're very excited to share with you our exploration story and our potential and our plans for 2022. We do acknowledge our traditional owners that we work across all of our lands. We pay our respects to all members of these Indigenous communities and the elders past, present and emerging. Today's webinar is going to be about 45 minutes, followed by, as Corey said, about 30 minutes of questions and answers with a focus on exploration. So the update today is really focused on what are we doing with our 13,000 square kilometres of exploration tenure in the Pilbara and the areas that we have in Victoria, and the team will go into reasonably depth on the work that's underway and the potential for that. So I hope everyone enjoys the detailed content, and it does give a chance for everyone to get a good overview of what we're doing, particularly this year with exploration. So Novo, we've done a bit of work to refine our purpose. We really are focused on embracing innovation to responsibly transform minerals for the benefit of our stakeholders. We really have an innovation culture. We like to rapidly adopt innovative solutions so we can maximise the potential for stakeholder value, but also increase the effectiveness and efficiency of how we go about our business. We're very, very focused on finding mineral deposits across our tenement, bringing those through development into production, or finding other commercial arrangements that allows us to bring shareholder value. And that's clearly our focus. And we really are there to bring benefit to all of our stakeholders. So they are our shareholders, our employees, the traditional owners, communities and suppliers all around the places that we work here in Western Australia and Victoria. So as many people are aware, our exploration focus is based on the Pilbara. The team are going to talk through each of the prospects that we have and the status of the exploration potential. We really have an absolute premium and dominant position in the Pilbara. As I said, around 13,000 kilometres of exploration. And we do see exploration as a key value driver to shareholder value, and we see heaps of potential. So you'll get a good chance to hear about that today. I know some people did ask some questions about the weather. Obviously, it's summer at the moment in the Pilbara. Not only do we see plus 40-degree heats, but occasionally you do see some absolutely wonderful rain events. And some people might have seen on the news that north of the Pilbara, they've seen lots and lots of weather. Over 1,000 metres of rain has fallen in some areas. But at the moment, our exploration and operation sites are pretty well free of any weather events. So we're busy charging away, delivering on what we wanted to do for 2022. A key part of our portfolio is our Golden Eagle processing plant. So many people will have, seen the facility on your slides. We can treat 1.8 million tonnes of ore. You'll hear today the work that's happening to bring forward more ore that allow us to be processed through the material. Never a short journey, but a lot of work is going around the mill to bring in more deposits that will provide us a long-term feed. So you'll definitely hear that story as we move forwards. But this is a great modern processing plant that allows us to treat great gold deposits and bring those into gold production, which is important for the overall story for our shareholder value. So I'm going to hand over to Quinton, our non-executive co-chairman. He's going to provide a bit of an overview on the Pilbara exploration potential. Quinton, take it away.
All right. Thank you very much, Mike. Look, it's a pleasure to give this presentation today. We are focused on exploration in this presentation. I am absolutely delighted that our team, including our exploration manager, as well as our regional managers, are all present here to give you a little picture of what they've been working on. And it's absolutely riveting as far as our exploration potential goes. They have been very busy over the past few months. We have an aggressive exploration budget and a great team who are making some very compelling discoveries lately. And you'll see what I mean by that very shortly. But before I begin, I want to talk a little bit about the Pilbara. The Pilbara is basically, it's a region in northwest Australia, so northern Western Australia, that was actually one of the early discoveries of gold in Australia. Of course, Victoria was before this, but up in the north in a little area called Malina, gold was discovered at surface way back in 1883. Now, early on, there was a recognition that a lot of the gold in this region was associated with conglomerates, which was very interesting because there was another discovery made at the same time in South Africa. In fact, almost to the day, gold was discovered in conglomerates in both South Africa as well as the Pilbara. I mean, it's just astounding to think that the planet's been around for billions of years and human beings happen to stumble on this same kind of geology, similar geology on two different continents within a very short span of time. But that's how it happened. Most of the early production in the Pilbara came from alluvial workings. There was a lot of alluvial gold that was exploited. But then there was a little gold discovery down in the Yilgarn that became the Eastern Goldfields. Basically, the Eastern Goldfields, now Kalgoorlie and the other world-class camps across that province, pulled away a lot of the miners from the Pilbara. So in 1887, there was kind of a flux of people moving down further to the south and working on those gold fields. Now, nonetheless, there was a bit of work over the subsequent decades, but really no modern exploration until Novo showed up. In 2010, Novo acquired its first land holdings in the Pilbara region. And ultimately, we've amassed this 13,000 square kilometers that Mike mentioned earlier. We've actually got the largest land holdings targeting gold across the Pilbara. So we are a first mover in this terrain, in my view, and we really blazed the trail for further gold exploration. So you'll see that there's quite a few companies, I'll talk about that in a minute, that have popped up in the Pilbara, and a lot of that money that's been spent has resulted in some remarkable discovery. So where are we at right now? Early stages. This is a gold field that's basically just starting to open up to exploration, and we're going to see more and more discoveries, of which our team is making several. Okay, the geology. Why is this region so prolific? Look, this is a little piece of the crust that formed way back in early Earth history. It shares very strong similarities with the Capville Craton, which is in South Africa. So the Pilbara Craton and the Capville Craton were actually probably once connected. They're probably part of the same earlier continent here on Earth. And what that means is the geology and the processes associated with the geology that lend to the formation of gold deposits are present on both little pieces of crust, now, many thousands of miles apart. But we find conglomerate systems very similar in age and geologic setting to those over in this South African craton. Okay, so this is a very intriguing story about why one should look for gold in the Pilbara. Well, we're basically dealing with a direct analog of the stratigraphy and styles of mineralization one sees in South Africa. Now, that gold also extends down into what are called the basement rocks. Okay, so the rocks that underlie this, the very, very early rocks, are also turning up very similar gold deposits. And some of the discoveries that we've made and other companies have made here recently, again, are also very, very similar to those that are found in the basement rocks of the Capville Craton many thousands of miles away. Highly prospective ground, lots of geology left to explore, and we are by and far the largest player in this region. These are some of the stories that you'll see now in this day and age around the Pilbara region. Many stories, not just ours. Ours are kind of highlighted there in the yellow. So we got the West Pilbara, Genie Project, East Pilbara region, including Beaton's Creek. And then we also have tenements in the south of the Pilbara. But there are other companies that have been positioned there. Now, we've acquired Millennium, so that was really the one early gold producer in this area. But you're now starting to see other gold producers pop up. Capricorn started production a few months ago. Calidus is gearing up for production sometime later this year. DeGray Mining is on to a significant discovery up at Hemi. We have a lot of the ground that immediately adjoins that, and the exploration potential we have is equally compelling, very exciting. So, I won't spoil the punchline on that. Artemis is busy in the West region. Interestingly, Artemis and another company that's not listed on here, Azure, have base metal discoveries here recently too, up in that region around Karratha. And then we shouldn't forget Kalamazoo's down in the Ashburton in the south, as well as Northern Star, which has Paulson. So you can see here, this is an emerging gold field. Again, early days, but we see a great future, and we have a commanding position across this country. With that, I am going to hand the reins over to Kaz DeLuca. Kaz has been with us for about 5 years now as our general exploration manager, and it's an absolute delight to hand the reins over to a very solid pro who I've known for many years.
Thanks, Quinton. Okay. Let me just get the tip right. Good. Well, thanks very much today, guys. It's a really good opportunity for us to introduce both our exploration team and a little bit more of our strategy and what we're doing in the Pilbara and also in the Victorian goldfields that we have. This first slide is really just one of my favourite slides because it shows you the sorts of terrains that we're looking at. The speakers are all listed here on the left-hand side. Alwin will follow me shortly and talk to you about the East Pilbara exploration and the Nullagine Gold Project exploration around Beaton's Creek, feeding the Hungry Mill. Iain Groves looks after the West Pilbara, and that includes Egina and the Southern Pilbara areas as well. And Chris is looking after all of our project generation as well as our Victoria project, so he'll give you a little bit of an update on that side of things. And on the right-hand side, I've just got some happy snaps of some spectacular scenery and some of the types of terrains that the guys have been working with. We have done a little bit of drilling, but we're aiming to do much more this year. We do have chopper-supported work. The guys are very familiar with heli-supported exploration all through the Northern Pilbara. Some of the terrain can be quite challenging. And as you can see, that one photograph of a drill rig perched on the top of a quite a steep access up at Talga. It looks pretty interesting. So there's plenty to do out there this year, and we are diversifying our strategy a little bit as we go into 2022. So this slide actually talks to our land holding in the Pilbara. Obviously, with exploration, it's all about location, location, location. We not only have a series of very good conglomerate targets that Quinton's been talking to you about. Obviously, originally we came into the Pilbara with a conglomerate focus, but as we've done more and more exploration throughout this land package, we've come across other targeted areas. We've come across other commodities. We know that we've got some fantastic base metal targets, battery metal targets. And we'll talk to you a little bit more about those when the guys get into more detail. The package does morph a little bit, so you will see that across the years we've added what we think is more prospective, excellent ground, and we've turned over additional ground that we think is much less prospective or even impossible to work on. So the ground holding will change in size a little bit over the years. But what we're actually left with now, I mean, it's basically just part of the exploration strategy for every company, is that you retain and upgrade the land holding that you have as best you can. And we've certainly got some really fantastic projects to be working on now. And we're aiming to drill on pretty much all of the different areas. And in fact, we're drilling at the moment in the Nullagine Project and in Victoria. Moving on. Okay, so I would expect that you would be familiar with the concept of an exploration pipeline. I've got two here to show you today. The first one is for the near mine and brownfields in the Nullagine Gold Project around Beaton's Creek, and as part of the overall strategy to extend the life of mine out on our Golden Eagle Mill and at Nullagine. We've got a 20,000 metre RC program that's underway, and we've already completed some pretty successful programs in 2021 that Alwin will talk to you about. One of the really important finds that came about from some fantastic mapping and innovative thinking last year was actually a project that we call Genie. It's a significant find for us because it's actually the first time that gold has been found in a dolerite rock out across in the Mosquito Creek Basin. All the previous work has been really sediment hosted, all the work that was previously mined there. So that's a pretty significant thing for us, and Alwin will talk to you about that particular project in a bit more detail. And on top of which, these are just really our top 20 prospects that we've been working up and trying to move up that exploration pipeline and up the profile to get to the resource and reserve estimation positions. In the region, as you can see on this this pipeline, much of the prospectivity is still in the bottom end of the pipeline. We've done a huge amount of work walking across that land package in the last 3 years, and now we're in a position where we have areas that we're really keen to start drilling, and we'll try and push some of these targets up the pipeline to get to a resource area. The other really significant thing, that we've got in the regional areas are that we're now moving out into additional commodities. So we do have a series of really super excellent drilling, target ready systems that are either gold or base metals or battery metals. We're coming across different prospects all the time where we are finding much more interesting areas and much more interesting prospects from a commodity perspective. So we do have conglomerate targets, we have base metal and and battery metal targets. You can see there, just in the colours on the triangle, that there are a plethora of different targets. It's not like we're just looking at one particular commodity anymore. So we are diversifying, and all I can see going forwards this year as we drill things out is more and more success. Finally, the Victorian Exploration. Chris will talk to you about this in a bit more detail. We have 2 ongoing projects out there. The Milesbury Project with GBM Resources, where we're drilling at the moment, and the Queen's Project with Kalamazoo, which is an option. And we're planning to do a lot more work there this year, but I'll leave Chris to talk to you about that in more detail. Obviously, this is the first sort of entry level into the Victoria area in the eastern states of Australia, but certainly it's looking prospective at the moment, and it's probably just the beginning of the strategy out in that area. The last thing I just really wanted to mention before I hand over is that we do try and use innovative new technologies. There's quite a bit of technology that's been developed in CSIRO, one of our government research agencies over the years, that we're now invested in quite heavily, and it's been very successful. Our photon assay turnaround times for gold analyses are a quarter of what the rest of the industry is actually looking at the moment. It's a really fast turnaround. One of the issues that I think the entire industry globally is having is how slowly assay turnaround is these days. So we're getting sort of 3 to 4 week turnaround with photon assay. We are a platinum level sponsor with a group called Detector, again another CSIRO commercialisation of a very low level gold detection that we can use in the field for fast turnaround times, which we're going to be trialling in the field this year. All of our geologists are really keen to be involved in the mechanical sorting work that's being developed internally. For the first time really that I've seen, we're looking at developing direct gold targeting with the sorting, as well as looking at other upgrade opportunities with the Steinart scanner. The rest of that is pretty obvious. The core scan work, I'm sure everybody's aware of, alteration mapping and targeting and vectoring. And we are talking to CSIRO about some partnershiping this year, and also some government funding with the EIS. So there's a lot going on in our world right now. I hope I've given you a bit of an overview, and I'm going to actually pass across now to Alwin, who's our first exploration manager running the East Pilbara exploration.
Thanks, Gaz, for the introduction, and apologies for the musical chairs. We'll jump straight into the overview map for the East Pilbara here. So as Gaz mentioned, the East Pilbara is including the Beatons Creek and the Nullagine Gold Project in the central lower part of your map. We've also got the 10-year Rand Marble Bar that we would have seen some times previously with Contact Creek, Virgin Creek and Talga labelled there. We're dealing with about 248 tenements. A lot of these are located around that Nullagine Gold Project as mining leases and prospecting licenses. The larger exploration licenses making up the bulk of the square kilometres there. So we're just under 4,000 square kilometres. And also, as Kaz mentioned, by exploring for a lot of conglomerate gold in the last few years, you inevitably find everything else by understanding the system better. Lots of orogenic gold, obviously Nullagine Gold Project, but also things like Talga, and a few other prospects around the place. And we're making some new discoveries with intrusion-related precious and base metal targets, including Gully Washer, which is labelled there to the northwest of your map. Near some other projects, there's some lithium targets in the area, some iron ore mines, obviously, some other base metal targets, as well as the Werrawina project from Calidus that is going into production in the next year or two. Primary focus of this area has been Beatons Creek in the last 5 or 6 years, with lots of RC drilling taking place from 2014 to 2018. But it was really diamond drilling and bulk sampling that we did there in 2018 and 19 that sort of gave us a bit of a step change and helped us understand Beaton's Creek a little better. And in understanding Beaton's Creek a little better, you can also make inroads into the other conglomerate targets like Contact Creek and Virgin Creek. September 2020 is when Novo acquired the Millennium Gold Project, with the first gold pour in February 2021. And that's really started up exploration in the district at a slightly larger scale. So we've now increased our team. We're still a fairly small, fairly high caliber team out there in the east, with lots of drilling taking place. So we drilled 450 holes over 26,000 meters, over 13 prospects in the last sort of 6 months from May, and we plan to do a lot more of that going forward. Zooming into the Nollagine Gold Project, you'll see Beaton's Creek just labelled there on the western end. This is a 40-kilometre east-west strike extent covering the Middle Creek Fault, as well as the Blue Spec Shear. The Nollagine Gold Project is now obvious a key focus to extend the mine life by finding additional answers. Millennium left us with over 200 prospects. We've added a few of our own, including the Genie discovery that's just 3 kilometres from the plant. And essentially it's a newly recognised gold mineralisation style that was previously overlooked. And there's a few analogues on there as well that we'll get into in a little while. All these prospects that are labelled are targets that we have drilled or will be drilling this year. All the ones that are not labelled are those smaller dots that you'll see in the background. There's an incredible amount of work to be done to go through all these targets, rank them. We prioritize, obviously, things that are big and high grade, but we also have an overlay there in terms of distance to the mill, whether the oxide is still available or whether we're dealing with fresh material, etc. So there's a quite a complex sort of ranking and targeting process that sits behind that. And all of these prospects are essentially located on a haul road, easy trucking distance to the Golden Eagle processing facility. The major infrastructure runs essentially along that Middle Creek Fault, which is very handy. So we've released results from Vulture and Parnell, and I'll go through that in a bit more detail, as well as Genie. Other exciting results are coming in from Margie's. We've drilled Crossing and Link, and there's a few other prospects that we are now getting first results back from. A lot of this drilling is the first phase to discover and get a handle on grade and scale. Which will lead to follow-up drilling to define resources, essentially. We've got about 20,000 metres of RC drilling planned for early 2022. Jumping into the Genie Prospect there, you can see some of the released assay results labelled there, and there's a few that went out a few days ago. We've drilled about a 200-metre strike length over the last sort of few months, with another 100 metres sort of strike length mapped towards the west, and you see the rock samples labelled there in grams per tonne. That will be drilled early this year as well. We're looking at doing some early 3D interpretations and wireframes of mineralisation to better target these lodes. We've now defined a sort of a 300-metre strike extent, including those rock sample results that we'll have to drill yet. And it's interesting. It's a sheeted dolerite dike system, which is variably quartz veined, with gold obviously in and around the dolerite dikes in a structural corridor. So this dolerites are known to be mineralized in many other parts of the world, but at the Nollagine Gold Project weren't recognized as such. Along strike, the structural corridor continues. There's an offsetting fault just on the northeastern end of your map. There on the screen, but the major corridor continues with the several analogues identified already from mapping. There's a whole bunch of historical shafts and workings along that sort of trend as well that help us sort of hone in on this as a target style. So several analog targets to be followed up later in this year. Jumping all the way to the other side of the Nollagine Gold District, Parnell and Vulture, very early days. We've really only drilled a third of this program. Again, there's some old historical workings in the mix and a few historical drill holes. Millennium did not hold this tenure until quite recently, so they hadn't had a chance to do the initial work here themselves. We're about 45 kilometres away from the Golden Eagle processing facility. The whole road you can see zigzagging in and out of the legend there in the bottom of the image. Some high-grade historical results in fairly sporadic drilling, and our current drilling results suggest that we're getting some fairly good strike continuity with what looks like a series of repeat shoots or pods, like on section of along strike. So we have a very continuous structure for about 2 kilometers, with sort of the high grade sort of shoot components within that structure at times. As I mentioned, we've only drilled about 5,000 meters to date, with 15,000 meters planned, so another 10,000 to follow up on. You can see the grey dots on your map as planned holes. This includes some infill drilling at Parnell proper, but also targets at Parnell South, Vulture, and Vulture West. Vulture West has been drilled, and we're just waiting for the assay results coming through right now. And there's a series of vein swarms that are parallel and adjacent to the trend that are still on our radar as well, with some high-grade rock samples helping us target these better. So we'll finish the program. We'll immediately, whilst the rig returns, do some infill drilling around those high-grade results. Droik is currently on site despite the heat and the occasional inclement weather. We're currently drilling a little bit closer to the processing facility for access reasons at AU81, and we'll be finishing our drilling program at Link. And stepping up to the Marble Bar tenure, around Marble Bar, we've got our conglomerate gold targets, Virgin Creek and Contact Creek. This is still quite early days. The Contact Creek conglomerate sits within the Bellarish Formation, which is quite unusual. So that sits below, like lower stratigraphically than the Beatons Creek Hardie Formation. We're dealing with 2 to 12 meters thick conglomerate units with some very encouraging rock samples up to 15.9 grams per ton gold. Virgin Creek is a bit similar to Beatons in that it sits in the Hardie Formation as well. Again, sort of up to sort of 8 meters in thickness and quite continuous along strike, with drilling results including 5 meters at 1.8. The strike lengths that we've tested are about 2 kilometers at Contact Creek and 500 meters at Virgin Creek, compared to the actual strike extent of the units, about 20 kilometers for each. It means this is very early days. There's lots of follow-up work to be done here. The next step for both prospects are bulk sampling. If we can see how this ore sorts, if this favorably ore sorts, then that changes the project economics rather significantly. And only recently, this is not on your location map, the Goldeneye target is actually east of the Nullagine Gold Project. It's essentially a mirror image of Beatons Creek. It's sitting alongside of these major structural corridors within the Mosquito Creek Formation, with gold targets dotted along them, and they're potentially shedding into that. They're shedding into Beatons Creek on the west, and they're potentially doing the same thing at Goldeneye. Lots of historical workings. There's an old sort of plant, almost lots of scrapes. We've just taken a whole series of rock samples. You can see the map down the bottom left of your screen, dealing with a 400 to 600 meter strike extent, up to 12 meters in thickness, and rock samples pending. Stay tuned for those. And just for something unusual, I guess, for the East Pilbara, but just to highlight the prospectivity of the area, recent mapping late last year, and then the rock sample results literally just came back a little while ago. Gully Washer, it's a new precious and base metal target. There were some historical rock samples in the area. This is 30 kilometers west of Marble Bar. We're dealing with a precious metal and base metal rich breccia on the hanging wall and footwall contacts of a felsic porphyry dike. Early days, we are going to do a lot more follow-up mapping here. There's a series of dikes in the area. There's several 10 to 100 meter scale porphyry dikes relating to a larger porphyry intrusion towards the east, which is also on our tenure. And we'd like to, we need to now figure out from mapping what the scale of the system is, and grade tenor, I guess. That's it for the East Pilbara. So obviously, I mentioned there's only the 2 or 3 prospects mentioned at Nullagine Gold Project. We'll be drilling all year, and stay tuned for lots of drilling results. I'll now hand over to Iain Groves, who covers the West Pilbara, to give us an update on that as well.
Thanks very much, Alwin, for a great summary. My name's Iain Groves, West Pilbara Exploration Manager, in charge of around about 100 tenements covering nearly 9,000 square kilometres. The scale on this map, those grid squares, are about 50 kilometres. We have a very highly prospective package of tenements adjacent to several new up-and-coming deposits. Sorry, I've just got a technical little hitch here.
What's the problem, Ian? I can help you out here. What are you having trouble with?
Oh, it's all right. I've just turned the whiteboard on, but it's covering half the slide, so I'm not going to worry about it.
Okay.
Thanks anyway. Yeah, so we have quite a number of new discoveries occurring in the West Pilbara, in particular the Hemi discovery, which is up near Betcher in the northwest there, and a new discovery by Azure. It's a massive nickel sulfide deposit at Andover, just in the northwest there. So we can break down our current major targeting strategy in 2022 into 4 main categories in the West Pilbara. So we're focused on conglomerate gold, which is the orange dots here, and in the presentation I'll talk a little bit about Comet Well and Purdy's Reward. Also the Greyland trend, not forgetting there's a number of really good gold bearing conglomerates around Edgenar, and also down at Bellery Dome in the South Pilbara there at Ebony's Find. Number 2 style of mineralisation that we'll obviously be exploring for is the orogenic gold, including the Hemi style. So our main focus will be up in the Betcher area, and that quite nice corridor running from Edgenar right down through Station Peak and Croydon. It's about 50 to 100 kilometres long of basement gold mineral occurrences, and the Croydon trend is a joint venture with the Creasy Group. Not forgetting the orogenic gold that's going to be targeted down in the South Pilbara, down there at Rockley Dome and Bellery Dome. Given the current nickel price and the demand for battery and base metals, we have shifted our focus a little bit into looking at all of the nickel massive sulfide type targets that we have up in the Karratha region. These are shown in red on the map there. And also volcanic hosted massive sulfide. There's a very good trend of about 16 kilometres long prospective for copper and zinc. So in this presentation, I will just touch on a couple of the main prospects from each of those 4 different groups. Just go back. First slide I'll show you is actually from up at near Betcher, and includes the Hemi gold deposit. This is a first vertical derivative magnetic image, and it's really highlighting this major structural corridor that spans across about 100 kilometres and hosts now about 9 million ounces of gold in several deposits. The biggest, obviously, is in the Hemi deposit, which is sort of up on the northeast edge of the screen there. All of the Hemi's actually hosted in a granite, and you might have heard the word sanucatoid being thrown around a little bit. Sanucatoid is basically a granite. It's a sort of high magnesium, and it intrudes along giant structures on convergent margins. So this setting is rife with sanucatoids that host things like Hemi, and all of the magenta little shapes that we have there are interpreted magnetic features that could be sanucatoids. I think the main thing that I wanted to show you on this slide, or for you to take away from it, is this major structural corridor, the Novo land holding, which is shown here in the blue colour, numerous gold prospects, and our position right in the middle of all this action. So that Betcher area that's got a big circle, I'll show you in the next slide. And yep. So zooming in, we've got numerous magnetic targets that are surrounded with the magenta coloured pink there. We also have our structural corridor clearly marked. It's about 10 kilometres long. Previous exploration work from other companies in the past has defined some soil anomalies with strong arsenic and antimony, and they're highlighted in yellow. They also did a little bit of reconnaissance drilling and generally air core drilling, and have identified quite a number of holes that have gold greater than 0.1 gram. And in particular, in the Irvine area, there's quite a significant number of holes that have better than 1 gram and a peak gold assay result of 4.38. So quite an exciting piece of ground up here in the Betcher region. Our work program this year will involve drilling as many of these magnetic features as we possibly can. We think they're related to granite intrusions and primarily along this beautiful structural corridor. Just a quick view of something we've been working on down in the Bellary Dome. It's called Cartier. It's one of a number of basement targets that we've been mapping and sampling over the past year. This is quite a spectacular target with a nice shear zone running across the screen there, with the most southern black line being the major shear structure. There's numerous quartz veins. They're all shown in red there, so a really nice network of quartz veining. And peak assay results of 116 grams per tonne with numerous high order values, a little bit hard to see, but 41 and 28 grams, and a number of other 1 grammer type results. So these sorts of targets this year we'll plan to do sectional systematic RC drilling across the trend, and also follow up along strike. This target goes undercover for about 2 kilometres to the southeast. So we'll do some vertical air core drilling and obviously some sectional 40 to 80 metre spaced RC drilling through these sort of major targets. Jumping up to the north, I wanted to highlight some exciting new prospects that are associated in the battery metals and base metals exploration space. So what I've tried to highlight on this slide is all of the giant mafic, ultramafic intrusions that occur up in the Karratha district. They're all highlighted there with the red outline, and the ones that are actually on Novo tenure are highlighted as a pink solid shape there. All the red dots are nickel copper massive sulfide targets defined by previous exploration companies, Airborne EM, surface geochemistry and a few other things. So most of these targets are not drilled, and the next couple of slides I'll talk about the Andover and the Andover area and the VMS trend that's down near Wandoo. Pretty critically for this story is that this intrusive complex that's quite arcuate and runs across about 100 kilometres from Andover down to Money in the south, hosts the Money PGE platinum group element deposit, one of the largest underdeveloped PGE deposits in Australia. We also have the Radio Hill nickel copper cobalt mine that was mined in the early 2000s, massive sulfide deposit. The new discovery of Andover from Azure with a nickel copper cobalt, and also as Kaz or Mike mentioned, the Carlo Castle deposit being worked on by Artemis at the moment, which is a little bit unusual, right up on the flank of the major Andover intrusion, and it's a copper, gold and cobalt project. So the next slide we'll talk about is up in the Andover area, so the yellow circle up in the north, and right next to Carlo Castle is the Milburn Prospect, and right next to Andover is the Southcourt Prospect. The following slide from there will be highlighting that VHMS trend. So the Southcourt, the little image there shows the Southcourt area. There's 3 EM conductors, a little bit hard to see on the screen there. They're the white circles, white dashed circles. Our recent work has included live in-field portable XRF soil sampling, looking at base metals, obviously copper, nickel, cobalt, those sorts of things. What we've defined next to the EM anomalies are some quite spectacular anomalies, the biggest being the copper, with values up to 0.15% copper in soils, similar values for nickel and up to nearly 0.2% cobalt. So when we have mapped this in detail and collected up a bunch of rock chips, most of our rock chip samples are not yet returned from the lab, but we do have spot results from the portable XRF. So when we zap a rock like the one shown on the bottom of the screen there, we end up with 20% copper from malachite, obviously, 0.13% cobalt and up to 2% nickel. The Southcourt anomaly is more or less along strike from Azure's Andover nickel discovery, and we're probably about 2 kilometres just to the west of that discovery. The lower slide here shows Milburn. Very interesting. There was an EM anomaly that has been a very strong conductor, modelled from ground EM in the white circle with the dashed lines. Our recent portable XRF work on soils has found a 450 metre long high order copper anomaly flanking that EM conductor. Interestingly as well, there is a large IP anomaly, so induced polarisation to the south, that was found in the 1970s. And our work, the IP anomaly sits right over a sort of alluvial plain, and our work in the area of outcrop has found quite a strong copper anomaly, which has got blebby and disseminated nickel copper sulfides associated with it. So we're still waiting for the results, but these are the sorts of targets that this year we'll do ground EM and get into some diamond drilling. Zooming across to Eastwell and Bobswell, for those of you familiar with Cometwell and Purdy's, you'll see those on the screen in about the middle of the slide, and the VHMS trend is that black shaded shape that runs just to the north of Cometwell and Purdy's. So the VMS copper zinc was mined at Wandoo and Asia copper zinc mines in the early 2000s, and the VHMS trend extends well and truly for 16 kilometres through our ground package. We've done quite a lot of mapping and surface geochemical sampling over the last 6 months, and we have defined some quite amazing banded cherts, banded iron formations and sulfidic carbonate X-halite lenses, all really good signs of an X-halite system that is related to VHMS. All of the cherts and carbonates are anomalous in copper and zinc, and a few of the rock chip results we have back from the lab at the moment give us values of up to 4.6 copper, 0.36% zinc and 0.29 ppm gold. So quite encouraging early days. The sort of work we'll do here in the future will be continue the soil sampling and detailed mapping, follow up with some ground-based geophysics, and then do some drilling onto a target like this. Last but not least in this presentation is talking about conglomerate gold targets. This year will be very exciting for us as we test a number of targets with RC drilling and bulk sampling, using the innovative new Chrysos techniques to pick up the coarse gold, and using a mechanical ore sorter to ensure that we can get a very good understanding of the endowment of the gold nuggets in the conglomerates. So one area to be tested is Graylin. We haven't mentioned it much previously. It's a 19-kilometre sort of graben corridor of beautiful boulder conglomerates with buckshot, and this is one of the targets that we'll be testing with RC drilling during 2022. The other news is that we're starting mechanical sorting in 2022, hopefully at Cometwell and Purdy's Reward. We have 22 bulk tonnage sample locations selected, over 2.5 kilometres strike. They are testing a couple of different horizons, and we will be trying to get a good feel for how many of the beautiful watermelon seed nugget gold nuggets that we can extract out of the conglomerate. So that should be happening during the year. In summary, I hope this has provided you with a snapshot of some of the great targets that our team will be systematically exploring in 2020. And yeah, I hope to be able to deliver some spectacularly good results in the coming months. I'll hand over to Chris Doyle now, who's going to be talking about the Victorian Exploration.
Sorry guys, just also playing a little bit of musical chairs here. Bear with me 1 second. So thanks very much, Rosie. That West Pilbara sounds really fantastic. Very exciting. So just to recap on the Victorian assets that Kaz has introduced earlier in the presentation. In May 2021, Novo acquired a 50% interest in the Milesbury project with GBM Resources. At the same time, we've also exercised an option to earn a 50% interest in the surrounding Queen's project with Kalamazoo Resources. So the combined project area is around about 22.5 square kilometres in total, located around about 120 kilometres northwest of Melbourne, and it comprises a mixture of both bushland and also farmland, as you can see on the image there, and it has really good access. So if we just look at the Victorian assets in a little bit more detail, again, as Kaz mentioned, the projects are located around about 50 kilometres south-southwest of the high-grade, world-class Fosterville gold mine, and similar to Fosterville, we're also located in the Bendigo tectonic zone. So if you can see on the inset photo or the inset image on the right-hand side of the slide, the Bendigo tectonic zone is represented in the light blue coloration here. Project sits around about the middle, towards the middle and the east of the Bendigo tectonic zone. It sits south-southwest of Fosterville, southeast of Bendigo. It sits also to the northeast of Ballarat. So it's in a pretty good location. So the Bendigo tectonic zone itself is very well established and very well gold endowed region, and it has a really long history of gold production to the present day. Probably in order of around about 60 plus million ounces across the region has been pulled out, and most importantly, it's still growing in no small part thanks to Fosterville. So if we zoom into if we talk a little bit about the geology of the area, we've predominantly got folded Ordovician sediments, mostly sandstones, siltstones with lesser shale and granulestone in the project area. We also have localised basalt cover sequences as part of the newer volcanics, and we've also got modern and paleo alluvial deposits, and these also include the prolific gold-bearing paleo channels which occur throughout the area. But importantly, we've also got an occurrence of a late Devonian mineralised mons of granite in the project, which is relatively rare for Victoria, and also providing quite a lot of excitement for the team. If you look at the image in the middle of the slide here, so the yellow dots are essentially our key prospects across the project areas, and you see there's quite a few of them. Both the Milesbury and the Queen's Project areas have a really long history of gold exploration. There's abundant historic mines, abundant workings present throughout the whole area, and these yellow dots are really just some of the more, I guess, some of the bigger and more priority target areas. There's literally thousands of workings across the project area. So if we focus in a little bit more on the Milesbury project just for the moment, so we consider this to be highly prospective for gold, and as I said before, it has a really long history of both bedrock and alluvial gold production. It's probably estimated to have had around 100,000 ounces of historic gold that's been pulled from several bedrock sources across the project. And some of the bigger historic mines are listed here on this slide. So that they include the Queen's Birthday, O'Connor's, and Egyptian mines. That's just a very small example of dozens and dozens of mines throughout the area, and thousands of workings, as I said before. So if we look at the figure on the right-hand side, that really gives us a bit of a snapshot of our targeting, or our sort of priority targets that we have identified to date. They're defined as the yellow polygons. Now, these targets are the culmination of a fairly significant body of exploration work that has been completed both by GBM prior to the joint venture, but also by Novo and GBM have completed significant work as part of the current JV. So some of that significant work includes acquisition of high quality or high resolution LiDAR data, LiDAR imagery. We've also completed a Falcon gravity and magnetic survey. We've completed detailed 1 to 500 scale mapping and rock chip sampling, which has been critical to the project. We've also completed significant soil sampling, and we've integrated 3D modelling of all of the data. So that's all the historic data, historic maps, historic sort of workings and mine plans, and all the current structural data from the mapping. We've pulled that all together into a 3D package within Micromine, and we're really using that to help drive our targeting, understand our targeting, and drive our drill targeting. So ultimately, that work has led to diamond drilling, which we're currently doing at the moment, and we're really excited to see what that comes up with. Pardon me. So, in addition to the 104,000 ounce 11-star resource, which is currently being drilled and will hopefully be expanded, so the targeting work to date has really highlighted that there's evidence for numerous gold mineralisation styles within the project area, and some of these styles include anticline related gold, which we see in Fosterville, Bendigo, Castlemaine. But we've also got the potential for intrusion-hosted and/or intrusion-related mineralisation, and the latter of that being quite rare in Victoria, and it's really exciting for us on the project with recent confirmation of mineralised occurrence of outcropping mines of granite in the area. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move forward. But in addition to those target styles, we've also got the classic fault and or shear related mineralisation with numerous mineralised faults that have been mapped throughout the area, and you can see from the detail on the map on the right hand side that there are most of these line works are various faults on different orientations. So the 11-star resource is a good example of a classic fault and or shear related mineralisation. It's a bit busy on the slide, but that's the northeast trending target that you see in the sort of the central part of that slide there. So if we just focus for a moment on the current drilling, I'll give a little bit of an update there. So this is current drilling that's underway on the Milesbury Project. We've got 2 drill holes completed for around 475 metres on the 11-star resource, and the 3rd hole is currently underway. Now, both of those holes have likely intersected the 11-star, but more excitedly, we've also potentially hit some splay structures off the 11-star as well, and that provides us additional targets moving forward, and hopefully will allow us to sort of expand that resource. Both the drill holes, MD13 and MD14, were pushed westward and deeper past the 11-star structure. Now, this was in order to test prospective reef positions in the area, additional reef positions in the area. Now, what's really interesting and what's really good is that both of those holes have intersected several new significant zones of faulting and veining, alteration and sulfide mineralisation. This is highly encouraging, and we're eagerly awaiting the assay results on this drilling, and hopefully they should start to flow in over the coming months. So if you look on the figure on the right hand side of this slide, so the top of the figure shows the plan view of MD13, which was drilled to the northwest, and MD14, which was drilled westward. Now, the 11-star structure on the top of that figure is this northeast trending red line there. So both of those holes successfully intersected that structure. And also both of those holes, MD13 just off the screen there, has also intersected potentially other target structures. MD14, which is also displayed in the cross section below. Now that has definitely intersected the 11-star, which was sort of like the first red polygon down the drill trace. But there's a number of intersections of sulfide mineralisation and really good alteration denoted by these sort of red hatched blocks along the drill trace. So those zones potentially represent extension of these other target structures. So we're super excited with MD14. At the time of writing, only half of that drill hole has been logged in detail. The rest will be logged in detail as I'm speaking now. And I'm sure that there'll be more zones of mineralisation that will pop up along that drill trace as we drill deeper. But of also really high significance is that MD14 has intersected an anticline hinge. So that's, you can see that sketched out in the yellow lines here in the cross section. So this anticline sits in a highly prospective gold anomalous target corridor, and it provides really good confidence for us moving forward for our anticline related gold mineralisation, such as the fossil style. So this anticline sits in an anomalous corridor that also contains to the north the mineralised mines of granite. So there's a hell of a lot happening in this corridor, and it's a really exciting position to be. So not only is there a good target on this particular section, and we have got good, we're certainly getting good looking core, but there's also provides a target as you move along strike of the anticline to the north and along strike of the anticline to the south, and also up dip and down dip everywhere. So we're super excited about this, and it's a really strong validation for the mapping that's being done. So all in all, a really positive start for the drilling campaign at Malmesbury. I just want to quickly focus in now on the adjacent Queens project. So the JV is really in its early stages for the Queens project, and most of the work to date has been restricted to historic desktop reviews and also some brief field reconnaissance work. But what we do know from the historic data and the reports is that there are several north-south trending gold reefs present, and these include the Queen's Birthday, Kangaroo, Frenchman's, Frosty Morning, and Carr's reefs. Now, all these reefs require field mapping, sampling, and evaluation. We also know that a portion of the license is obscured by the newer volcanic basalt cover sequences. Now, you can see this on figure as the green northeast southwest trending polygon there that basically crosses across the fair portion of the Queen's project area. Well, you consider this to offer a really strong opportunity for blind discoveries to be made on the plot project. And these are areas where the outcropping reefs that you can see in those lines on the figure there, where they basically continue, or they potentially continue under the basalt. And these would have been really difficult to explore and identify historically. So we see that as a great opportunity on the project moving forward. So moving forward, the intention is to complete mapping, rock chip sampling, and soil sampling throughout 2022, and follow-up drill targeting, possibly to follow based on hopefully early success in exploration. Now, that kind of brings us to the end of the Victorian part, but before I hand over to Mike for the Q&A section, I'll just sum up really briefly. So there's lots happening on the exploration front in Victoria. There's lots of prospective targets to test. There's lots of excitement around the geology. We're currently drilling. Watch this space. And on that note, I will hand over to Mike. Thanks.
All right, Mike. Sounds like it's Q&A time. We've had a number of questions come in. Again, guys, for all the ones that have asked the questions on production, we are still going to remain focused on simply the exploration aspect here. And one thing I want to start off with here, Mike, early on, more big picture, we were hearing about the exploration in Western Australia, this whole theory of gold endowment occurring in conglomerate beds, this being a result of gold being precipitated out of seawater in the Earth's history. We haven't heard much of this hypothesis recently. Is this concept still relevant regarding this overall story?
One of the joys I get, Corey, is I can handball some of these. So, Quinton, I think that's very much in your
That's not a Mike question.
Yeah.
That's a me question.
All right, Quinton, let's hear it.
Have a go.
Yeah, absolutely. At Beaton's Creek, we have a very, I collected rock samples, or the team there has collected rock samples out of the fresh material, which is really the first time we've been able to see this stuff. I mean, it's amazing that some of the rocks have pristine pyrite pebbles and all sorts of interesting things in them. Need to start studying those. But we see gold of two different types. There is coarse gold, which is probably alluvial, gold that's washed into the basin. But we also see finer grain gold, and that can't be alluvial. It's too fine grain. It would have been washed away. It just would have been eliminated. So my hunch is that there is still a component of precipitation in these conglomerates. This will be the first time we get to do a little science around that. I actually have a pet project ongoing right now to study it. But the gold at Purdy's reward and the conglomerates we found elsewhere across the Pilbara. The best explanation, given that there's not really significant alluvial sources in the basement, the best explanation for the gold that's derived in a lot of those conglomerates is there must have been at least a precipitation event, whether it's directly into the conglomerates or if it predated the conglomerates and simply reworked. That's still up for debate. But we are doing that science.
Okay.
Thanks, Quinton.
Now, guys, there are a lot of questions that came in regarding that hole that CRA Exploration drilled. A deep hole, encountered anywhere from 10 to 11 grams per ton gold. And from my understanding, Novo has not drilled a well down in the basin near where CRA drilled. Can one of you give us a little bit of background on that CRA Exploration hole, and if you guys are going to follow up in any way on this?
Sure. CRA was a company, I believe it was part of Rio Tinto, if I remember right. And it's basically was a big think exploration program done quite some time ago. I think it was done in the 1980s. They did drill a number of deep holes. The one that you mentioned is one of those. And they did hit gold in that hole. There was about, I think, around a half a meter of something like 15 grams or thereabouts. The hole is not quite on our ground, first of all, so we can't replicate it. We can't just walk up and drill exactly. There was a bit of disputing where the exact location that hole was. It's been 40 years, almost 40 years since it was drilled, so there's a little dispute exactly where it was. But look, from the beginning, we've decided, rather than spending like a hole that deep, which was I think 1,800 meters where they hit the gold, rather than spending the $2 or $3 million for drill testing deep holes like that, let's go see if we can make Purdy's reward go. And that's been our focus, is to drill up the shallow part of the Purdy's reward and Comet well part of the system, and let's see if we can make some money at that. And that's a major part of our effort here, like the ore sorting and stuff that we're doing right now. Okay. All right, thanks. We're still going to stick with some of these more detailed questions, and then we will get big picture with some of these questions that have come in. Now, does Virgin Creek or any other Pilbara conglomerate contain favorable near-shore geologic environments or evidence for biogenic precipitation of gold? Can you guys break down this question a little bit for us?
Yeah.
Yes,
Alwin's
sir.
right here. Oh, well, Quinton, you want to pick it up, or we'll give it to Alwin?
I wasn't sure if Alwin was there or not.
Yeah, he's definitely here.
I'm here. I'll just slide in. Virgin Creek, we have definitely, just going back to the earlier question as well, the presence of keratin or stromatolite class. At Virgin Creek, we've seen these in the drill core that we've got there. So stromatolites like that sort of more quiet environment. So with the Virgin Creek conglomerate is surrounded by siltstones above and below that unit. And yeah, there's evidence of stromatolites, and in fact, we've seen the carbon come back in the samples that we've taken as well. Carbon interferes with your leach well cyanide assay methodology, and we've seen a lot of the gold not reporting to the leaching, but to the fire assay on the tail instead. So confirming that we're dealing with carbon in the system here as well.
Good. Thanks.
Okay, thank you guys. Broader question here: has tellurium been detected from any prospects or vein deposits held by Novo?
Quinton, grab that one.
Look, we do full multi-element analyses. We have not seen appreciable tellurium, to my knowledge, in anything that we've examined. I'm not quite sure why the questions come up. I mean, tellurium is usually associated with alkaline gold systems. Perhaps the person has a question about whether, we see any alkaline gold on our tenements across the Pilbara. My answer would be no, we haven't seen anything. Now, the other place you could see tellurium would be with orogenic systems sometimes, or intrusive related systems in particular. And Milesbury, clearly, like Chris said a minute ago, there's a granitic association there. So if there's tellurium in that might have escaped my attention. But if whoever asked the question gives me a little more clarity on what they want exactly, happy to answer it.
Okay.
Iain, do you want to expand on that in your area on
Tellurium?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a quick look at the data that we've collected over the last few years, and really the highest sort of values are in the 20 to 70 ppm tellurium range, and they're all associated with orogenic gold, particularly things that have galena and things like that in it. So quartz veins with galena have higher tellurium. There's not a huge amount of tellurium in any of the other data that we've collected so far.
Oh,
Okay.
thanks.
Thank you, guys. Whoever asked that, if you want to send in another follow-up question, feel free to do that. Question regarding the Belltop Hill target in the Milesbury Project. What would be considered an exceptional drill result for this phase 1 program? This listener, audience member, is presuming more NFG, like near-surface bonanza high grade, but he presumes this is not in the cards, actually. What would you guys consider an exceptional drill result here?
Go, Chris.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I'll have a crack at it. So the drilling on the 11-star resource at the moment is really is part statutory requirement. So we're actually drilling for with the view of doing network. So we're not necessarily chasing high grade bonanza results on the 11-star itself, but I'd have to be guessing. I don't have the data in front of me, but some of the better results would be in the order of several meters at 10 to 20 grams per ton. It's a relatively narrow structure, but it does have quite a lot of mineralization in the hanging wall and footwall. So it really depends on whether you jag some of those sort of spur veins that are coming off the main lode there. So what we will be looking for is hopefully those intervals, several meter intervals at like 10s to 20s, potentially for extensions on the southwestern end of the drilling. I hope that sort of covers the question off a little bit there.
Okay, so there is still that high grade available.
Yeah, the big picture
definitely
is that Fosterville style mineralisation that brings us something that we can mine and make money with. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
This one's also a little bit off course here, but it's a good question. There's this historic high-grade mine, Mount Elsie, near Parnell, Vulture. Is it scheduled for exploration? Because this person's digging back to reports from 1940 that if they are accurate, he's stating that the grade was extreme.
We have a team of people here in the office digging through open file data sources and historical reports and mine plans and all that sort of stuff. The Nullagine Gold District is known for high grade. Lots of prospectors still go out there and finding very high grade material. The trick with some of these high grade sort of shoots is that they can be like your old school wheelbarrow size that would make a lot of money for prospectors. We need the scale as well. The LC mine we're familiar with, it's definitely on our radar for exploration work. We've done some reconnaissance work on it later last year. But there are, as I mentioned, there's hundreds of scrapings, working shafts, etc. that are all historical high grade mineralization. So we try, as I mentioned earlier, we try to rank that and target it appropriately, and we're looking for that scale as well.
Yeah, Corey, I think that's an important comment that Alwin makes. In the Milesbury region, there is a lot of targets for us to look at, and through that pipeline system that Kaz talked about, the team looks at the broad exploration area and builds the picture up so that at the end of the day, we're really focused in on one or two targets at any particular time with our drilling. And if those targets don't firm up, we bring a next lot to the top level. So we do have lots of targets. We can't spread our focus across all of those, but through the processes we have, it brings it up to the 2 or 3 that we really want to target for the 3 months, 6 months, really work out what they do in terms of bringing value to us, and then bring others to the table. So we can't afford to lose focus on too many targets at one time.
Okay, that ties into this more broader question here is that, look, you guys clearly have invested in a lot of other deposits, a lot of other areas to explore in. So is there a grander plan here when it comes to building out resources or general exploration? Just because we did get very detailed in individual projects, but what about the larger plan that you guys are looking at?
Look, at the moment, our focus is, as you've seen today, for exploration across that Pilbara area. We have a large tenement base, as Quinton talked about in the team. It's very, very perspective. So this is our primary focus area for the next, short period of time, 2 to 3 years. We have recently, as Iain talked about, broadened the focus a bit to make sure we're looking at other commodities in our tenure that could bring value. So we're doing a little bit of that work on base metals and battery metals because there's huge demand for it. But Corey, for the immediate time, our focus is on the Victorian stuff you've heard Chris talk about, but then the Pilbara focus that Kaz and the team have talked about remains enough to keep us busy. And we're fortunate. There's a lot of targets there that could bring in really substantial deposits. So we'll keep focusing on that area.
Okay. Sorry to ask this because not totally in that aspect, but there any time frame or plans on when people can expect quantified reserve calculations for Egina, Purdy's, any of the other projects?
Always very difficult to answer. So if you look at the work that we're doing at Parnell Vulture, we probably have all of this year to complete drill outs before we can bring the potential of a resource together. As Alwin said, very early in phase 1 drilling, but we should have that done by mid-year, and then we can pull together a possible resource. As we've talked about previously, the ore sorter, mechanical sorter, will move from the Nullagine processing plant out to Comet Well around mid-year, and that work will then allow us to look at whether we can put together a resource for the Purdy's Comet Well project at the back end of this year.
Okay, thank you. A lot of questions have come in simply asking financing for the company to move forward with all of this exploration. I know that's always a tough question to answer, but what can you guys give us in terms of insights, budget-wise, how much this is going to cost, and if the company has that funding to do it?
Yeah, good question. So at the moment, with our cash position that we have and also our wider portfolios, we are confident that we have enough funding to get us through the exploration program that we want to do this year. So we're very committed to delivering that program that you've just heard about.
Okay, so you shouldn't have to go back to market. I know that's hard, but boy, oh boy, we're getting a lot of questions on that.
It's not our intention for the exploration program.
Okay, thank you. Sorter updates. Let's just start broadly there. Can we get an update on where the sorter is doing its work right now?
Yeah. So as you saw in the release in December, the team have done a great job of putting together the mechanical sorting facility. So that's the crushing units and the power and the conveyors. So people should have a look at that release. So that phase 2 trials, as we call it, is underway. A bit of delay over Christmas and a few little mechanical issues, but we're expecting to see the results from that work late February, early March. Once that work is completed, the plan still remains to pack it up and move it across the Pilbara to the coast to Comet Well and Purdy's Reward around about April, May this year to start that phase 3 trial, where we've consistently said we'll put through about 20,000 tonnes of material through the sorter, have results at the back end of this year that allows us to do two things: firm up the plan to go into production, but also provide the data to the Western Australian government to allow us to get the approvals for production. So we're pretty well on target to the outline that both Iain gave in the presentation and our December release.
Any more comments on if you're going to be buying any more mechanical sorters or how that decision tree even flows?
Yeah, that decision tree will come out of this trial at Comet Well, where we're really putting, it's a real demonstration trial, putting through 20,000 tonnes of material. The team will look at throughput rates, all of those things, and from that, we'll have a good idea whether we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ore sorters. They're easily available. Timeline's not an issue for us. It's really just sorting out the best production system to make the most amount of money.
Okay. And then when it comes to all of these targets, various grades, various types of exploration, any ideas which areas or what you would be looking for the next source of supply to the mill?
Yeah, so priority is the stuff that Alwin talked about in terms of near the processing plant, and Parnell is the key primary target at the moment. As Alwin talked about, Genie and AU81 are kind of other targets. Alwin and his team with Kaz are working through what's the next big target for us to focus in that area to bring processing material. So that's always our priority at the moment, is continue the mine life and the processing life. And then following up that is the work that Iain is doing, and he talked about it, the basement gold systems, south of the large Hemi deposit, and also the follow-up on the nickel and copper deposits that we have south of Andover. So that, they are the three primary targets, with Chris busy away in Victoria looking for big systems.
Okay, guys, a lot of questions have come in regarding the newfound gold shares that you hold. Any plans on selling any of these to continue to fund the company? What information can you give us on your guys' strategy with that large position sitting on the books?
Yeah. Do you want to grab that one, Quinton?
Yeah, look, the newfound investment was a strategic investment. It's done very well for us. Obviously, the company, the exploration they're doing in Newfoundland has been an absolute killer of a success. Look, we don't have absolute concrete plans at this time, but we do consider it at this point part of our investment portfolio. If for some reason we need cash, that is certainly a place we can pursue. But right now we're happy to keep our shares.
Yeah, fair enough. I get a lot of questions on that. And, it's nice that you guys have those shares, right? That does open up an option for you. Another question that came in regarding some of the conglomerates. Are some conglomerates fine enough that RC could actually hit some gold?
RC is actually what we use at Beaton's Creek, and it is effective. You have to sample big samples. You can't take a small split out of the drill rig. It requires a bulky sample. But with the Chrysos technique, we're able to analyze those bulky samples. It's really not a problem. Virgin Creek looks like it's very similar, that we can drill it through conventional RC. But other things like Purdy's Reward and Comet Well, as we've talked about extensively, those are just too coarse grain, and with that lacking fine grain component, no, it's not very easy to drill. Now, there are other conglomerate targets that we have in mind here. Look, out at Egina, there are conglomerates that we've identified. And my hunch is some of those will be drillable by RC.
Okay. Since you mentioned the Chrysos labs, what are the turnaround times, and is that lab, does it have sufficient, workers, sufficient streams to meet the demands of the infill drilling at Beaton's Creek?
I'll get Kaz to pick that up.
Hi there. We've got a really effective site laboratory now where we do all of our sample prep for Chrysos. So we have two options there. We can prep samples on site, which at the moment is the majority of which is our grade control. And then we also have the facility to send samples off site for prepping. And then all of those samples feed into the Intertech machines in Perth. So two machines doing, full-time 24/7 photon assay is actually, I think we'll be fine. And we're getting 3-week turnaround as a regular basis for grade control. And if we need priority samples done quickly, we've been able to do 4 or 5 day turnarounds, depending on really dispatch, make sure we can get the samples to Perth. So I honestly don't think there are going to be many problems as far as that goes this year.
Okay, thank you guys. Last question.
Corey, that's been a real winner for us, where we can use that technology. It really assists, poor Iain with some of the work that he's doing out in other parts of the Pilbara where he can't use that technology. He's seeing 2 to 3 months turnaround on assays, just purely because the Western Australian industry is booming at the moment.
All right, last question, guys, then we'll wrap it up. Everybody, if you have more questions after watching this, after watching the recording, you can always email me, fleck@kereport.com. The last question deals with native title agreements that could be made to fully open up exploration and development at Egina. Any updates on the native title chat?
Yeah, good question. So, we work with 9 traditional owner groups across our tenements. We have really, really good relationships with this. And yes, the next key kind of milestone for us in Egina is completing the heritage agreement with the traditional owners and the heritage survey, not the agreement, the heritage survey. So we're in discussions with that group, and we hope to complete that heritage survey this quarter, which will then allow Iain and the rest of the team to go drilling, hopefully in March or April.
Okay, guys, wrap us up with a macro comment here. Summarize everything we've just been over in almost an hour and a half. I know that's difficult, but what do you want to leave investors with on the macro, high-level aspect?
So I think the important thing for people to realise is that Novo is in a very, very good position. We're operating the Beatons Creek operation through the Golden Eagle processing facility. That's a great facility for us to make gold and bring cash flow forwards. As you heard from the team, there's great opportunities for us to extend the mine life. They aren't totally developed yet, but the team's very focused on looking at additional resources for that facility. And then wider out, as you've heard from the team, great opportunities for gold, but also battery metals, Victoria and elsewhere in the Pilbara. So we're in a good position going forwards for this year. We're really excited about executing the plan, and our exploration portfolio is absolutely fantastic. So as we work through the rest of the quarter of this year, early in April, after the end of the quarter, we'll do a production and operations update for everyone that I know that they will be keen on that. And we'll probably come back in about 6 to 9 months and redo the exploration webinar. It is a very key focus of our activities going forwards. So I thank everyone for joining in, and look forwards for your continual interest in Novo. Thank you very much.
Okay, everybody, thank you again for tuning in. Again, you can email me any of your follow-up questions, fleck@kereport.com. To everybody on the team at Novo, I do appreciate you taking the time going over all the exploration opportunities available. Everybody, thanks again for tuning in.